About Michigan? You're what's so great about Michigan. Whoop whoop. So, not only are you special in Michigan, but also we have amazing weather here. In case you haven't noticed, we usually have a snow day or two. That's because we have the Great Lakes. And because of the Great Lakes, we have more precipitation than normal places because our weather, remember our last lesson, travels across the United States from west to east, right? It goes from west to east. And to our west is the great big Great Lake of Michigan, right? And in the north, we have Lake Superior and we have Lake Huron. You guys know the names of them, right? So here's what happens, and here's what we need to learn about today. Our learning target is I can complete a model to show how lake effect snow develops in Michigan. Lake effect is super important to us if we like snow days. Here's what lake effect is. Lake effect is a weather phenomenon created when cold, dry air picks up moisture and heat by passing over a warmer lake and precipitates on the downwind lakeshore. All right, so today you're actually going to see this model and you're going to label cold air, evaporation, rising air, condensation, and precipitation. I know it sounds a lot like the weather cycle, like the water cycle, but it is a lot like it because it's water cycling over Michigan. So let's say this is Lake Michigan and our weather is coming from the west. We have some cold air weather coming from the west. It picks up some of the moisture over the lake, and remember that lake is big, so there's a long time to pick up a lot of moisture. And as soon as it reaches the cooler land, it condenses and then it falls to the ground as some form of precipitation, right? Usually snow if we're talking about cold weather, right? If it's rain, it would be warmer weather. All right, so notebook page 64. You want to complete 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 blanks. Now, I really struggled with drawing this, so don't give yourself too hard of a time if it's not perfect. If you can add color, man, those 2 colors make it look fantastic. Go ahead and do it. I would highly suggest using colored pencils. Let's move on to page 65. Oh man, Mrs. Tomlinson, that's a beautiful map of Michigan. Thanks, kids. It sure is. I was so afraid to draw this in my notebook with my pen that I drew it on a separate piece of paper. And actually, I cheated. I traced another map, and then I drew it on a separate sheet of paper so that in case I made a mistake, I could just do it again and I wouldn't wreck my notebook page. So you're welcome to do that if you want. Here's our learning target for page 65. I can identify areas surrounding the Great Lakes affected by lake effect snow. So there are areas in Michigan that get lots more snow than other areas. And those areas are called a snow belt. Say that with me, snow belt. A snow belt is a region found downwind of the Great Lakes where there is heavy snowfall. You guys know what downwind means? Do you? Have you ever been next to somebody when have you ever had that happen? And then you do this. You make some wind so that the air goes by you. Remember, wind is just moving air, right? Well, downwind means that it's the direction of the wind. And if you hunt, you know that you need to be downwind from a deer so the deer doesn't smell your scent and you can get a good shot. All right, so if you take a look at this map of Michigan, you see we have Lake Michigan here, Lake Huron here, and Lake Superior here. You know the weather comes in from this side. So as it blows across that water, it picks up that moisture and it dumps it as soon as it hits the land. So on these darker colored areas, those are what we call a snow belt because that's where the snow just gets dumped. There is still snow dumped on the rest, but not as much and ridiculous amounts in these darker colored areas. So what you're going to do is you will actually draw this. And then, look, I gave you the answer already. You're supposed to shade in the areas on the Michigan map that are affected by lake effect snow. So if you get stuck, you can look at the learning targets document or you can just come back to this video and figure out how to color that in. All right, last notebook page, Mrs. Tomlinson, because we have been working really hard. Oh my gosh, that's so much. It's really not. This is the last notebook page for this unit. It says, I understand that ocean currents affect weather and climate air temperatures around the world. So not only are the Great Lakes helping out and affecting the weather in Michigan, but the oceans of the world affect the weather and climate of the continents of the world. So we need to know the difference between weather and climate. Here's our first term, weather. Say it with me, weather. Weather is the daily state of the atmosphere or air at any given place. It's like right now what's going on. Like, is it snowing right now? Is it raining right now? Is it sunny right now? Okay. The next term is climate. Say it with me, climate. It's the average weather conditions in an area over a long time period. Like, do you have a tropical climate, like Florida and the Bahamas and those nice warm places right now? Do you have a freezing cold Arctic climate, like the North Pole and Santa and all that jazz? So that's over a long period. Michigan has something called a temperate climate because it has a lot of highs and it has a lot of lows. It has a lot of highs and a lot of lows, and it goes in between all 4 seasons, temperate climate. Today, what I'm going to have you do is look at a couple of maps and diagrams of currents that are all over the world. I numbered all the currents for you. Yes, I did some drawing there too, but I didn't make you draw it. You're welcome. So these are the names of the currents, and I want you to tell me whether they're warm currents or cold currents. And as you're doing that, please notice where in the world they are and where they're next to, and like what the weather or climate might be next to one of those currents, okay? So on notebook page 66, you're going to complete this table with just warm or cold, and you're going to explain, use an example, how currents affect the temperature of the continents. If you get stuck with that piece, you can find a really long explanation in our Learning Target document. Just pick a place that you feel like a current affects the weather and look at where the current is and the diagrams and explain how that current affects the weather there. If it's a warm current, is there a warm climate? If it's a cold current, is it a cold climate? All right, so now that I'm completely tongue-tied and you are ready to go, you got 3 notebook pages to do and a bunch of really cool diagrams to make and analyze. Let's do some science today.